Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom Airsoft. It's good to see you again, and if it's your first time here, then it is good to see you, and I hope you're going to stick around. Okay, well, welcome to our midweek video. As you can see, back in the studio again. Still not able to get to my regular game, unfortunately, but hopefully that'll change shortly. Okay, so I think we'll get straight into it today. As always, if you are enjoying my series of videos, then do subscribe to the channel. That way you're not going to miss anything that I'm putting out there, and hopefully you'll enjoy the content that's here. Okay, so that out of the way, this midweek video, I thought we'd have a look at something else which maybe is aimed more at beginners, at new players, particularly players who've just bought their own gear. You've just got your own kit, you're starting out in Airsoft. It's all exciting, you've got your own replica now and you're building your kit up slowly. Don't worry, if it's anything like me or a lot of other people in Airsoft, it never ends. You'll end up buying more and more gear. You'll end up with more gear than most armies, but that's all part of the fun. So today, what I thought we'd look at is 5 essential items, another one of my 5s lists. 5 essential items that I would say are essential for basic maintenance of your Airsoft replicas, for keeping them in good nick. You've spent that money on a replica, you might have spent a lot, you might have spent not so much, but you want to keep it in as good a nick as possible. Now in this video, we're not going to go into the type of maintenance you might see on some of the communities and forums of stripping down gearboxes and, you know, re-shimming and that type of thing. I'm on about a replica that you've bought, you're happy with it, it's working, and you want to keep it looking tip-top and, you know, like it's from new. So let's get straight into it. What's the first item that I think that you need for any decent maintenance? Well, a selection of rags. Rags, workshop towel, cloth, all these things come in very handy. Now, as you might notice here, I have a dirty rag and a clean rag. The reason rags are so important for Airsoft maintenance is if you play in the outdoors, particularly, like I do, if you play woodland games, then you might notice that if it's chucking it down with rain or snowing, generally not a very pleasant day, your replica is going to get wet. The main thing with a replica is not to put it away wet. If you're putting it in a gun bag, or in the box it came with, or it's just going under your bed or something like that, who knows. But wherever you keep it, do not store it wet, because some of the metal components on there will rust if they're real steel. Some of the alloys will tarnish, your barrel might tarnish. Generally, it's not going to do the replica any good at all. So you want to dry off your replica as soon as you can, preferably before you put it in the bag. At the same time, your replica might get a bit of dirt on it, your hands get muck on them, it ends up in the undergrowth, anything like that. It could end up with dirt on it, and if you're anything like me, you want to keep them looking like new and clean. So this is where your rags come in. You can clean the replica off when you get home and get it nice and dry, get any dirt off it, keep it looking good as new. Now that gives us an honourable mention for those. With the cloths, you want some cloth that you can cut up, because the other side of it is you want to ensure that your barrel is clean. Now this is a barrel unjamming and cleaning rod. Most replicas will come with one of these. This isn't on my list because most replicas come with one of these. If your replica didn't come with one of these, then make sure you get one of these. They're not very expensive. I think you can get them online for a few British pounds. So get one of these and make sure you're cleaning your barrel as well as cleaning all of the outside of your replica, with particular attention to any metal components, keeping them dry and clean and rust free and looking beautiful. If you want to know more about barrel cleaning, I did a separate video on how to clean your inner barrel on your replica. I'll put a link to where that video is in the description, so you'll be able to have a watch through that one if you want an in-depth guide on cleaning your inner barrel. So that's rags. Now with rags, there's something else that goes along with that, and that is oil. This is RC shock oil. I always go on about how this is the oil that I use, and the reason I use RC shock oil is because it is 100% silicone oil. Now, if you're using oils anywhere near plastics or rubber, you've got to be very careful that those oils do not include any kind of petroleum-based products, because petroleum reacts with plastic and effectively eats it. It'll warp it, it'll melt it, it'll not do it any good. So if you stick with pure silicone oil, you get much the same effect, but you don't damage the plastics. Now, what I recommend this for basic maintenance, if you have a gas blowback pistol, you can pretty much do the whole pistol with silicone oil if you choose. Again, I did a video on how to do basic field stripping and cleaning of a pistol. But if you're doing a gas blowback pistol or any pistol, you're going to need to oil the seals. You're going to need to clean those up just the same as you would with an AEG or any replica, particularly with metal on there. Lightly oil one of your rags with some of the silicone oil, and I like to clean off the whole replica with it, especially paying attention to any metal areas, because this will create a coating on there. It does clean slightly. It's not really a cleaner, but at least it gives it a bit of lubrication when you're cleaning, and generally it'll make your replica look a whole lot better and last a whole lot longer. Pay particular attention to screw heads, bolt heads, anything like that that will be metal, and if you have a bit of oil on there that's been wiped over with an oily rag after you've cleaned it, then they're not going to rust. It's going to keep your replica looking good as new. So a bit of oil. Again, all these items, I'll put a link to where you can get the oil in the description. Rags, I'll not put a link in the description to those. You can get those at any supermarket, any hardware store, any automotive store. These rags here that I particularly like are just microfiber rags. Very cheap. Get a pack of 5 of them for about £3 or £4 British pounds. And then obviously these are just jerry cloths. You can cut those up into strips for cleaning your barrel. Again, very cheap, available at any supermarket. But I'll put a link in the description as to where you can get this silicone RC shock oil. And then if you want to get some of that, again, that's very cheap. It's about £3 a bottle. This bottle will last you absolutely ages because you only want to use it sparingly. You don't want to use a lot. Okay, so what next? Well, sometimes when you've got a new replica, especially on new replicas, you'll find that things can work loose. I'm not talking about things in the gearbox because we're not going into that today. I'm talking basic keeping your replica as good as new as you can keep it, and essentials for a new player that you want as part of your tool collection for looking after your replica and keeping it going. So next up, you're going to get things that work loose. It's unavoidable. You're running around, there's vibration from the operation of the replica, whether that be a gas blowback or whether it be an AEG. There's going to be vibrations that can work nuts and bolts and screws loose, and you'll get something coming loose. It happens all the time. Some replicas it might not, but the majority, you're going to get something working loose. Now, for that reason, I would say that you would probably want to get yourself, if you don't already, a set of hex keys, also known as Allen keys, and a set of screwdrivers. Now, this is just a small selection of my screwdrivers. You want to have a selection of both Phillips head, or cross head, or posi drive, you might see them called, and a selection of flathead screwdrivers. With those tools there, you're basically covered on the vast majority of airsoft replicas that you're going to come across. Anything that works loose, you should be able to sort it out with a hex key or with a screwdriver. And those are really essential, because if anything works loose on the outside of your replica, I'm talking rails, the front rail, the entire rail may come loose, or just 20mm rails. Sometimes the buffer can come loose on AR based replicas. That's where a particularly long posi drive screwdriver comes in handy, because then you can reach right down the buffer tube and just tweak it up. So yeah, you really do want to have a selection of screwdrivers and hex keys. You don't have to go crazy, just get enough that will cover you for what your particular replica has. Most of them will have only a few nuts, bolts and screws on the outside, but if you've got something to tighten them up, you're not going to lose anything in the field. There's nothing worse than something working loose, even if it's just a flip up sight or something like that which came with a replica. They very often are tightened on with an Allen key or with a screwdriver. If that works loose and falls off in the field, chances are you're probably not going to find it again because it'll be in the undergrowth. And just for the sake of having a few screwdrivers and a few hex keys, you'd be able to sort that out. Now, I'll put a link in the description as to where I get my screwdrivers and hex keys from. However, you can get these at any tool shop, any DIY store, any hardware store. You'll be able to get a selection of screwdrivers and hex keys. And the world is your oyster when you're looking at price on these. You can pay a lot of money for a decent set of screwdrivers, and you can pay a lot of money for a decent set of hex keys. But you can also get a set of hex keys for about £3 British. You get a set of screwdrivers for about £3 British. They're not going to be the best in the world. If you don't want to spend too much money, I'd say go middle of the road. If you're spending around about £8 on a set of hex keys and maybe £10 to £20 on a set of screwdrivers, they're not going to be brilliant, but they should do you for just tightening a screw up or a nut up or a bolt up on any particular item that works loose on your replica. And most replicas, that's all you're going to come across. Hex keys, and the majority are posi drive or Phillips head screws. Okay, so that moves us on to the next thing. And I know I bang on about this a lot, I go on about this all the time, and you probably get sick of me hearing about it, but a large part of an electric replica, an AEG, is the batteries. You want to keep your batteries in good condition, especially if you're using lipos, but it applies to any battery. If your battery goes bad in your replica as a worst case scenario, it's going to cause tremendous damage. It's going to burn out things in your replica because it's going to set fire. At any rate, it's going to make it a bit of a mess. So you want to look after your batteries, and at the same time your replica is going to perform a whole lot better on an electric replica if you look after your batteries, if they're functioning optimally, if they're running as good as they can. Your replica is going to run as good as it can within reason. So for that reason, my next essential item that you want in your kit with your replica is a decent charger. Now this is a Turnigy charger from the RC world. If you have a look on sites like Hobby King and things like that, they sell a lot of RC chargers and they do some really good quality chargers. And they're reasonably affordable as well. These particular chargers I think retail for around about 30 to 40 British pounds. They can do storage charge, they do proper balance charge, and they're fully controllable. And if you're running lipos or lithium ions or even NIMH, you want a decent charger that's going to maintain your battery for you, do a lot of the hard work for you. It's going to look after your batteries. So look after your batteries, get a decent charger. I know it seems a bit boring. A lot of this stuff might seem a bit boring, but if it keeps your replica running and it keeps it looking as good as it can look, that's all part of the battle, I think, in Airsoft. You want your gear looking good, you know, you want it looking tactical. And these items, as I say, come in handy for all sorts of other jobs, which we'll get into later with gearbox work and what have you. But they also come in handy for fitting attachments and things. And just like that, this charger will cover you for any future battery purchases. And it will look after your batteries. So do please look after your batteries and get yourself a decent charger as part of your kit, and then you're good to go, and that will look after those items. And then, last, but by no means least, is think about where you store your replica. Now, when you've finished your game for the day, you've got back, you've dried it off like we've suggested with your rags, you've applied a bit of silicone oil to all the metal components, or even the whole replica if you so desire, with a very light coating, wiped over with a rag. Now it's looking pristine, it looks lovely. You've cleaned out your inner barrel, it looks absolutely top notch, you're well happy with it, you look at it lovingly, ready for its next game out. Your batteries have all been put in storage mode if you're running lipos with your decent charger. Everything's golden. So the next bit about essentially looking after your replica, essential maintenance when you get back, is where you're going to keep it. Now, if you want to keep it in the box it came with, that's fine. The box that the replica came in will offer a certain amount of protection for it. If you have a cupboard or a gun cabinet or anything like that, then that's absolutely fine as well. But when you put it in there, you want somewhere that will keep it safe. Now, for that reason, I bang on about these as well. A case. You can get yourself a case. You know, they're relatively expensive outlay, but they will protect your replica, both in transport, and if you're limited for where you can keep it out of sight, they also keep it safe and secure in your home. But the last thing I'd say to do is leave it lying on a bit of carpet, unclean, or somewhere that's damp. What I tend to do is, if I'm particularly worried about a replica, I will throw in a couple of those silica gel packs. They are available to buy. If you want to do that, you can, but it still doesn't erase the need to oil the replica up and clean it off and dry it off when it's been out in the rain. So a case or a bag or somewhere in your home to keep the replica safe and sound from knocks, bangs, bashes, you know, anything that can affect it. Something gets spilt on it, you want it something that's safe and out of the way so it keeps serving you well in the field and does you proud. So a case, a bag, a cupboard, somewhere you can keep it safe and sound would be my next thing to recommend. Okay, so we've only touched the basics of maintenance there, and I've given you, you know, we've not really gone into maintenance, but there's 5 essential items that you want as part of your kit for maintaining your replica, your first replica, for keeping it looking nice and pretty and doing well. So I really hope you found that useful. I hope, you know, these items, you've probably got most of them already perhaps. But if you don't, then there's a few that I recommend. So as I say, I really hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. If you did enjoy the video, then please drop a like on it. If you've got any suggestions of items that maybe I've missed, or maybe items you think that should be on this list or shouldn't be on the list, let me know in the comments. I'll always reply to a comment. Might not get back to you straight away, but I will get back to you. If you want any more content from the channel, then you can find Rock Bottom Airsoft on Facebook and Instagram. There's more discussions on there, photographs, that type of thing, more about myself. If you've got any questions for me regardless, then do drop me a comment, and as I say, I will always get back to you. But apart from that, I will look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks very much for watching.